more. I took a look at what's on the internet, and for those who don't know what green bonds are, they are pretty similar to the normal bonds, but they are the fundings go to projects that are related to finance climate or like environmental projects. And um, the reason why I chose this is that sustainability is such a hot topic still. And also, the Board of Finance from Finland decided that they will try to commit to all the international sustainability principles last year. And I think that's a huge step that would help me. And yeah, here are, for example, a few examples that where what kind of projects they are being funded with this green finance concept, like wind energy and solar energy, biomass, recycling, and water topics, and so on. And I haven't decided yet if I want to do it in the Finnish market or European Union. And I'm not even sure if this is my final topic. It was an interesting thing to read, but yeah. And the research objective. Um, the first question would be, is the extra work that green bonds require worth it for the shareholders? And by extra work is that for example, the banks or other financial institutions, they need to actually research if the projects are sustainable, if they really are, and that requires a lot of bureaucracy and paperwork and workforce and money and so on. So I would really like to know if it's worth it in the end when you try to add up everything. And also, since it's really close to social responsibility, corporate social responsibility, I thought that the second question could be, do social responsibility and higher firm value go hand in hand? And here are three of the articles that I read about. And the first one was just a little bit about green finance in general. And the second one, it was about all the benefits that green finance has, such as differentiation and less risk management cost, and also less relations with the external stakeholder, like the costs that you have to talk to the, um, let's say, newspapers, social media, I don't know. And then the third one, it was actually from the EU official page, and even they know that it's a pretty tough thing to implement. It still requires a lot of regulations and laws and so on, but they mentioned there are a few of the barriers that the green finance has on the field. And I know that I'm talking the whole time about green finance, and the topic is about bonds, but bonds are like a tool out of all the green finance tools that there are out there. For example, another one is like loans, green loans, and so on. But yeah, and yeah, there's a lot of reputational issues if you say that you do something and in the end you don't. And there's an absence of clear economic benefits. There aren't many research done on this, and it's pretty hard because there isn't enough data even. And yeah, as I mentioned before, it's a complex and costly review process. And the methodology I chose from 2008 to 2019. And the reason of 2018 is that the first green bond was issued in 2007 when some Swedish people wanted to invest in something sustainable and they couldn't really find anything on the market that could help them to find the right thing to finance. And some of the green bond databases are Bloomberg and environmental finance, Dialogic, and CBI. I'm still not sure which one is like trustworthy. I didn't have time to take a look at them, but those are a bunch of them. And of course, I think I will gather everything in Excel and eventually analyze them in SPSS. And yeah, that's it. I try to keep it short. Thanks.
Okay, thank you very much, Theodora. May I have a look at your research objectives?
Yes. Yeah.
Are you trying to say in the first objective that is the extra work that green bonds require worth it for the share? Are you trying to say that with the shareholders will have the extra cost if they purchase the green bonds? So for this extra cost, do they get the extra return? Right?
Yeah,
Isn't this?
yeah. I mean, by this, I mean that if I compare a normal bond to a sustainable green bond, a normal bond doesn't have all those extra costs. And in the end, if it's sustainable and it's really promoted as being sustainable, does that add value to it in a way, or like enough value that when you calculate, when you compare them, is there extra value out of it, something like that? And
why don't you take the green bonds and the normal bonds or the non-green bonds and compare the performance and see that?
I've already found the research done like that.
Sorry?
And I've already found a research.
You found it,
but I could maybe do it in the Finnish market. And
okay.
Yeah, but I'm not sure how many bonds there actually are in Finland, because yeah, like I tried to.
Well, if you give me a second, I can quickly check.
Yeah.
I can quickly check what is the situation in.
I found somewhere a list where it showed the countries.
I just tried to check if it is possible to get them into. There are bonds. And more bonds, okay, and more. What is that? Sustainable bonds, okay. Discover the sustainable bonds. Wait a sec. If I'm sharing my screen with you, you can stop sharing it. Can you see it?
Yes.
So if you go to the same old-fashioned or NASDAQ OMX, you might see some of the, because all I did was I went to the bonds basically, and if you click, for example, Finland, then you might see and from here you can choose the sustainable bonds in Finland. Oh yeah, we have them.
That's really nice.
So they're not many, but of course we don't need many. And if you go sustainable bonds for, let's say, Sweden, there are many actually, I would say. Believe me, there are many in Sweden. Sustainable bonds, okay. So, because these bonds are normally issued by the private companies, yeah?
Yes.
Then the best comparison of sustainable bonds is with the corporate bonds. So you can see here, there should be a word, a category, the corporate bonds. And the corporate bonds basically are the non-green bonds, basically.
Yeah.
So if you have a set of sustainable, the sustainable, or let's call them green bonds, and then you have a set of corporate bonds, and then you can compare that then your question is very valid when you say that, is there any extra cost? Cost means, is there any extra risk to the investor for the same return if they want to invest in green bonds?
Yes.
Yeah. So then it can be a good comparison between risk return comparison between green and the traditional bonds or the corporate bonds. And then you can find out that, hey, for the same amount of return, who is having lower risk? Or for the same amount of risk, who is having higher return? Make sense?
Yeah. Thanks.
So I think this website could be very good. So if, for example, and then you have the Excel, by the way, so you can export the data to Excel. So for instance, if I look at this one, this bond, and historical prices, yeah, I get them. You know how to get the historical prices from when to when, yeah?
Yes.
And then you can export to the CSV. So you have the data, by the way. Good news. Congratulations. Thesis over. We are done. Yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think let's discuss more.
Yeah.
And regarding your second objectives, can you show me very quickly the second objective? Yeah. Do social responsibility and higher firm value go together? Okay, how do we make it nuts and bolts type thing? Do the social responsibility and the high. In a way, it's I'm slightly skeptic about the second objective, but don't worry yet. Once we work more on the first objective, yeah, then we will be able to create or maybe slightly modify this objective. Number two. I would say that you try to polish your first objective.
Yes. Yeah.
The second objective will follow, no problem.
As I said, I have 4 weeks during the Christmas tree to brainstorm my topic idea. I don't know if it's the final one, but it's an interesting
of course,
one.
yeah, no problem.
But yeah.
Okay, but it's a good topic. We should go for it, I think. And if anybody in the audience have a comment to make, please feel free to give some suggestions to Dora. Okay, if not, then we can invite our next participants. Is it Rudy? Are you going to go first next?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, go ahead.
Here. Okay, can you see it now?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect.
Maybe you can maximize the.
Yes, I'm trying to put my computer's
No, I can see now, no problem. You don't have to make any change, it's fine.
Yeah. Okay, so what I will be doing the research of is about a company called Nikola, and the question is it going to be the next Tesla or Theranos? I believe that you're familiar with both companies, Tesla and Theranos. And so here are two products that it makes. It makes semi-trucks, and it was about to do the pickup truck called the Badger. So the research background and motivation is that Nikola Corporation is about to revolutionize the automotive and trucking industry with zero emission hydrogen fuel and battery cell trucks. And so what I'm researching is it a fraud or a groundbreaking newcomer? Nikola is also a company which has really large name partnerships, including General Motors and Budweiser and so on. So I want to also see how much it affects the share price and how much it creates expectations for the shares. And there was also in September a research by Hindenburg which claimed against Trevor Milton that all the misconducts he has done. So 2 days later, the research was published. He reassigned from his position. And also one thing I want to see is that how transparent is the company for its stakeholders. There's been so many accusations of deception and false statements, and it has also made advertising that they have claimed eventually that it was misconducted. Also, here's a quick snapshot of the financials. And what I want to show here is that, well, you can see that it's a really big roller coaster, the share price. And the market capitalization right now is 7 billion, but on June, it was over 30 billion, which crossed Ford company. And also you can see the 52-week high and low, and that is a major difference between 93 and 10. So these are some numbers that I want to look into and show you. Research objectives. So mainly because I'm not too sure about the objectives yet, but I want to see the attraction of new investors from these big partnerships. Like, for example, the 2 billion partnership with GM, which was signed on September 8th, and the stock price went up by 30%, and only 2 days later, it went down to almost the same 30 to 40% by the research done by Hindenburg. Also, they went they went public through a SPAC by Vector IQ, which was a SPAC company that was investing in smart technology on vehicles. So there was something that Nikola didn't have to show to the public when they went for the IPO. And well, basically to see if they are a scam, or are they actually doing what they're saying, which is going to be revolutionizing for the industry if they do so. Well, of course, I have to do the industry overview because there's Tesla, who has also made the semi-truck for using the battery system. So they're going to be a big competitor if both of the companies will be able to manufacture the products. And the expected research methodology, it will be mostly secondary data. There will be articles, press releases, and all the financial numbers will be from TradingView and Yahoo Finance. And the period is ongoing because there's still accusations from the SEC and so forth. And for example, the GM partnerships, they written contract in September, and last Monday they took it back. So now there's no contract anymore. So that's also something that I want to write about, why they did it and what they would won if they would have gone on with it. Yeah, also for the period it will be focused on June after the IPO was made, and September when the Hindenburg report was published. There will be both qualitative and quantitative data. Yeah, so here are the references I've used so far. There's the research, and about there's a video also about which explains really well the current situation from September, and also from March, from the beginning of the year before it went public. There's an article from there as well, and now from last Monday the 30th, there's also an article where it says that GM pulls out of the deal with Nikola. Okay, so that's it.
Okay, thanks, Rudy. It seems to be very kind of adventurous topic in the sense that because this company Nikola is a newly public company. It doesn't have very long history, basically.
No.
However, the thing is that what would be your key objectives? What do you want to analyze in it? If you take Nikola, so what do you want to do with it? What research you want to do with it?
Well, mostly it's about the partnerships, that how to create trust for the investors and the public.
How would you measure the trust?
Through the share price, the value of the shares and the publicity of how well.
But the share price, when I just see because when you were presenting it, I just I had a quick look at the company. So if I can share my screen. So I found that this is how the company's stock price has been doing. So basically the price has dropped a lot, but we don't have very long data.
The IPO was on beginning of June.
Yeah. If you look at the analyst view, do they say something about this company? Well, if I look at, for example, the Yahoo Finance, so can you see my screen still?
Yes, I can.
Market cap, so well, there's not much information about. So my point still remains that if you just see the stock price of Nikola, what would you analyze from this? So what is the main mission objective to take this company? Are you going to compare it with something? Are you going to analyze its stock and risk going on?
Well, I want to analyze basically the end result, which will be unremained until further years. But what I'm comparing it to is Tesla and Theranos, because Tesla was basically the same thing in the beginning. It said big things and it accomplished them. But then also Theranos.
Then you can do one thing. Then you can do one thing. My suggestion is that find out when Tesla became public. Yeah, and see when it became public, what was its performance in the first 1 year, and then look at Nikola's performance, and then see what is the performance of Nikola in the first year, which is this year, basically 2020.
Yeah,
and see that do you find any similarities between the two? But then you have to justify that. The business model, the kind of product they are offering, they are comparable. You know, if I take, for example, Tesla first year performance, and then I compare it with Lidl's first year performance, it doesn't make any sense. Why doesn't it make sense? Because they have completely different product market, their business model, their background is completely same. So it has to be, you have to make other things being equal to compare. Because if you only analyze Nikola as a standalone company, then my worry is that what would we get from it? So you are right that you can compare it with some other company, and then why not with Tesla in the early years when Tesla was just in the initial phase of its being a public company.
Tesla did have the same beginning, sort of, when they, I don't recall, was it Toyota or which company that a partnership with manufacturing, and that was the key for them, that they were able to produce all the cars that they had orders for.
Okay.
Like, for example, now the problem with Nikola is that they have a lot of pre-sales already, but they don't know how to manufacture it. That's why they partnership with GM, who has the technology and the manufacturing knowledge. Well,
because for me, this is also a new kind of information, so I don't know much about it. Maybe it will be a good piece of good process of learning for me also through your research. But I think it's a good idea that if you want to go ahead, make sure that you get enough of data and the background information of both companies. Okay. And if you can quickly show me your, when you say methodology part.
Yes.
I can stop my share and you can share now. So. Articles are used for the review of literature. I don't think we can use article as a mean of methodology, because the articles will not give you secondary data. The secondary data you have to get from these sources like Yahoo Finance, etc. Press releases we can use as a supplementary information. But once again, the press release will not give you any secondary data, because the secondary data you have to basically download in Excel.
Sure.
So press release, if you want to get some information about the company.
For the press releases, I was thinking, like, for example, last Monday when they canceled the deal with GM, the press releases stated that they will have to pay all the prepayments for the truck buyers, so now they owe money for the customers.
Yeah, but how would you measure it? How would you measure it quantitatively? Because you are going to use the quantitative data, right?
Well, I will be using both, but
qualitative.
It's just the fact found from press releases.
How would you get, what qualitative information you want to get? Like a press release or some information, any announcements?
Well, yeah, I don't know how to answer.
No, I think that's what I'm asking, that when you see the press release, they make some announcement. For example, let's say you read the press release and the press release says that we are sorry, we have made some mistake and now we owe, we have back out from this deal, so now we will be paying some compensation to the investors or whatever. And as a result of this announcement, which is qualitative because it's in the sentences, right? It's a diction. It's not data, but it's the sentence. And as a result of that, the stock price fluctuates. Then you can say that yes, I'm measuring. I'm seeing the impact of qualitative information on the quantitative data. Then it makes sense.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So then you can relate the qualitative data with the qualitative information with the quantitative data. Yeah. So the press release, yes, but if you think about the research articles, as you mentioned, no, we don't use them in the data. The research articles we use to do the review of literature, and then from the literature review we make our hypothesis. And then based on the hypothesis, we get the data and then make our analysis based on it. Okay, so I think you should remove this word articles from the methodology part. And the press release is okay, it's okay, because in the methodology, you will also be writing about the background of the company. What is company, the history, who are the people. So in that case, the press releases will be very useful to you. Yeah. Sounds interesting, very intriguing rather. Yeah. Wait a sec, actually. If I just randomly compare, Nicola, you only give me a sec. Why can't I see maybe I see it here. Historical data. It doesn't show any graph here. Very less information is available. but that doesn't mean that you shouldn't do it. You shouldn't research it. Maybe in the summary. The chart is not available. Oh, okay, the chart is not available. But is the chart available in investing.com? It is available actually. And if I try to bring in, can you see the screen? Yeah?
No.
Can you see my screen?
Should I stop sharing my screen?
First you stop sharing it. Can you see it now?
No.
Just a sec.
Okay.
You can have very good articles, news about the company's policies, announcement, etc. Yeah, it's a very useful website. I like this. Profile overview, index component. Chart. Okay. Interactive. Just want to see that how it goes on. Compare. Yeah, that's what I was looking for. Compare with Tesla, for instance. Tesla, NASDAQ. Line. Yeah. So now you can see between this is Tesla and this is, so some kind of comparison you can make. But this is the recent comparison, the ongoing too. And if you want to compare how the overall this NASDAQ overall market is performing, then you can, for instance, the NASDAQ index. Yeah, something like this. So basically, this is Tesla, yeah? Yeah. So that way you can make some kind of comparison between Tesla with this company and also how with the overall market for different periods and make some kind of conclusion from it. So basically, I'm for this topic, Rudy, and I'm for this topic. Let's go for it.
Okay, good.
Yeah, let's go.
I will find a more clear objection.
Yeah, of course, yeah. Because my main worry, why I'm trying to quiz you, is that we shouldn't choose any topic for which we don't get the supporting information later on, and then we are basically coming back so in order to avoid any potential disappointment. That's my point of view. But I think if you do some more research about this company, its history, its background, its recent performance, then we can make it. Less data or more data is not a big deal. We will take care of it.
Okay.
Yeah, but it sounds interesting and challenging and promising. Both.
Okay.
Everything. Yeah. So I'm for this topic. Let's go for it.
Good. Thank you.
Okay. Right. Okay. Thank you so much for your presentation.
also have a presentation. Can you hear me?
Oh, yes, of course.
Oh, great.
Now we have Katrina.
Yeah.
Okay, so Katrina, when you're ready, you can share your screen and go for it.
Okay. Yeah, can you see it now?
Let me read your topic first. Management of liquidity and solvency during COVID-19 in Russian companies in the energy. So, wow, that's very bombastic topic. Katrina?
Actually, I try to make it completely vice versa, making it more
No.
concise.
It's really because I really wanted. This is really cool. Okay, go ahead. Let me see. I'm excited to hear you.
Great, thank you. So basically, the main motivation for choosing this topic were firstly the crucial role of energy sector in Russian economy, as Russia is one of the top 3 oil and gas producing countries, and it's also world's second largest net exporter of oil, the largest exporter of natural gas. Also, speaking of the energy sector globally, it's mainly one of the most important sectors in the modern society, as it is still the main source of energy that drives the global economy. And another motivation was, explaining the choice of liquidity and solvency, as they are both the main priorities for the companies during the pandemic. Firstly, companies nowadays, despite their size, adopt various measures and struggle to maintain productive capacity to support the recovery and avoid liquidity shortage and possible bankruptcies. Moreover, I wanted to make this topic more diverse, and as far as solvency focuses on enterprises' capacity to meet its long-term financial commitments, and liquidity refers to an enterprise's ability to pay its short-term obligators, I guess. This research thus will cover both short and long-term perspectives of the company's financial abilities. And finally, there's lack of studies in both Russian and international fields of the energy sector during the COVID-19, as far as it wasn't that influenced by the changes in the world. That's why I thought that maybe more in-depth study will be important, especially for our country. And moving on to the research objectives, I chose 3 main points which I want to cover. First is how fast and agile Russian energy companies were in modeling of their working capital management, which basically covers the liquidity point. The second is how many companies from the sector are now facing the bankruptcy threat, which is more devoted to the solvency of the companies. And finally, I wanted to combine those topics in a more general one and find out how important it is to maintain a stable energy sector in the country. Because, as was said, energy sector is one of the most important for Russia, but I want to find out how exactly it influences the Russian economy in general. Speaking about the literature review, I found out several trends, and the first and the most important one is that CFOs are becoming a focal point in the organizations, which highlights the importance of this research, as practically 1/3 of all of the conversations covering COVID-19 nowadays in the companies are connected with finance somehow. And this fact, together with the point that energy sector is crucial for the Russian economy, indicate that the research in this field is crucial. Another point is that oil and gas exports are main predictors and indicators of Russia's general economic state. And as was said before, and annual changes in the oil and gas revenues appear to have the same tendencies as some of the country's economic performance indicators, such as GDP, which is one of the main economic indicators. And that's why it is important to find out how it influences the economy in general. Another thing is that a quick response to changing environment can help organizations to prevent the undermining of their cash flow, and basically keeping their companies stable. And a final point, which kind of goes together with the third point, is that even if the company has the strong cash flow growth in accounts receivables due to a general tendency of the population to save money during the session, can lead to liquidity problems. So it leads to the methodology and research objectives that, and it is important to find out how companies find ways to fight those growth in accounts receivables and how they still maintain the cash flow and solve their liquidity and solvency problems. Moving on to the research methodology. Firstly, I wanted to collect data from the balance sheets of at least 10 biggest companies in Russian energy sector. I'm still not sure about the time period, but I wanted to focus on at least 5 years of just to have some overall picture of what was going on in companies before the COVID-19 and how it changed their way of functioning now. Obviously, I will focus on the liquidity and solvency ratios. And in the liquidity ratios, I want to, even though I'll definitely perform all of them, I want to focus on the net working capital, and in solvency ratios, I want to focus on, I firstly wanted to focus on the gearing ratio because I want to find out how risky it is to invest in these companies nowadays and how it influence the shareholders. But then I thought that I want to discover more in depth the long-term debt ratio. As I mentioned before, I want to see all the timestamps as well as short and long ones. So now I want to discover how long-term debt ratio changed, and so that I can reveal the trends in company's choice finance assets, either with debt or with equity, to repay debt. And as the second way of doing the research, I want to compare the economic cycles in Russia with the performance of the companies from the energy sector, so that once again, it will either prove or refute the defining influence of oil and gas companies on the country's economy. So yeah, that's it. Those are the references, articles used. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you, Katrina. Could you please go to your research objectives?
Sure.
Yeah, how fast and agile are Russian energy companies in their modeling of work. So why don't you do this? Just make it simple, and you can say that your first objective is to analyze the working capital management models of the Russian energy companies. Simple.
Okay.
Because if they're good, then they're fast and agile anyway. So.
Okay.
And then you are saying how many companies from the sector are now facing the bankruptcy? No. Because you can just count them without having a research objective in that case. You should analyze that what is the bankruptcy or the nature and the extent of bankruptcy risk that the Russian energy companies are facing. So you can say that your second objective is to study the bankruptcy, to study the potential bankruptcy risk faced by the Russian energy companies.
Oh, I guess that's what I meant. I just couldn't put in the words.
Yeah. And I think, because see what, now it's a very minor thing. You are saying research objectives, right? But if you see point 1, 2, and 3, they are ending at the question mark. So it means they are research questions. Do you get my point?
Yeah, I understand. I will change.
Yeah, but no, nothing against that. Don't make any change now. But just listen what I'm saying. How important is to maintain a stable energy sector? No, we should make a slight change to it. In the first objective, we are studying the working capital management model. And working capital management is good for your liquidity.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And then you are studying about the bankruptcy threat. And then you talk about the third. Why don't you do this way, Kate?
Yeah.
Why don't you do the way you do the modeling of working capital management? Why don't you have a second question about their debt management?
Okay.
So you have the working capital management, you have the debt management, and then based on the two, you can make third objective, which is now your second objective, that what is the nature and extent of bankruptcy threat?
Yeah, I understand. Yeah.
So first you study the issues about the working capital management, then you discuss the issues about their long-term work, not working capital for a short period, but overall debt management, the long-term debt and stuff. And then you, based on these two analyses, you can determine if there is any risk of bankruptcy.
Yeah.
Yeah. And for this, I would recommend you to, there is a thesis by Valeria, I think. Yeah, Valeria. And she has used this kind of bankruptcy threat of some Russian companies. But then you can have, for the third objective, Valeria's thesis can be very useful to you because she has studied the Altman Z-score. She has studied this Altman Z-score, and then she has studied, what is the risk? Yeah, she has studied some models, actually, very good models. And they can be very useful for this purpose.
Oh, okay. If it's possible for you to.
Well, I can show you actually. Just a sec. If I can share my screen. For instance, if I share my screen, and if I go to thesis.phi, and then I go to study of account manipulation and bank. Hey, this is really good, Katrina.
Yeah.
This thesis by Yaroslav.
Yeah, I wrote it down.
And this thesis by even Olga Pashkova, because she is also using the financial ratio, even though it's a very case company type, but still. And then this is so the financial fraud detection. Well, she is discussing that how the fraud and bankruptcy are related. Okay, but the fraud is different thing, but the bankruptcy model you can take from Valeria's thesis, and it's a marvelous study, believe me.
Oh, thank you very much.
She has done a great job, I would say. And somewhat. No. I think this Yaroslav, number 2, and Valeria, number 1. So you should study them in this order.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
Okay.
Yeah.
No worries. Good job, Katrina. So thank you very much for your presentation. And may I request the next presenter?
Can I present? Can you hear me?
Oh, is it phone? No. It's Nidon.
Yeah, I am. Can you hear me well?
I hear you like a whistle.
Okay, so my Oh, can you see my screen?
That's really cool. The ownership structure
Yeah.
and association. Use the
Yeah,
word association with
association, I would say.
accounting errors or accounting manipulation, maybe.
Yeah.
Okay, let's
I
see.
will change it later.
You go first, May. I'm getting overexcited.
Okay, so my topic is about the ownership structure and its association to accounting errors. Um, about the motivation of that I choose this topic. Actually, I jump into it when I read your article about the independence of audit committee. Like you mentioned it in a very small corner about the influence of the ownership concentration on the independence of audit committee, and I think the concentration of ownership is very interesting, and I start reading more articles about it, and I realized that is a lack of researches about the association of ownership structure and the credibility of financial reports, especially in modern context. I mean, like after the provisions of Sarbanes-Oxley Act and rules by thesis is applied, after the scandal of Enron and some big company, um, and reading many articles, I find a small paradox that on one hand, business with a high concentrated ownership is more likely to and easier to fake its financial reports for the interest of themselves. But on the other hand, like high concentrated ownership can reduce the independence of audit committee and rule other governance characteristic, which less errors to be less likely to be revealed. So it raised doubt on the accuracy of financial reports, and I think how investors can use the financial report when they consider raising an investment in the company when they don't really believe in the information they have. So I read some article, and here are some very interesting finding that I found in my chosen article. The firstly is ownership concentration has a negative correlation to the informativeness of the financial reports in East Asia context. Secondly, there are no relation found about the ownership concentration and profitability, but there is a non-linear relation of the ownership concentration and firm valuation. And thirdly, there's restating firms have similar ownership structure that 81% of restating companies have outside block holder, which I found really interesting, and they influence my thinkings a lot when I choose this topic. So here are some questions that I raised. Firstly, how some characteristic of the market change when the concentration becomes higher. And secondly, how investors use financial reports when they don't really fully believe in it to consider in investments. I developed some hypotheses to answer my questions. The firstly, there are some assumptions that I show on the screen you can read. The first hypothesis is the tendency of financial report credibility when ownership concentration increase. And I developed two sub-hypotheses about the correlation, the association of concentration ownership with the number of restatements, the stock price, and the trading volume. The second hypothesis is to answer the second question, the most to identify the most suspicious accounting indicators in the financial reports of a high concentrated ownership corporate. And I here are the methodology that I intend to use to for my study. The firstly is to apply the regression equation to estimate the reactions of market characteristic, and the second is to input the data of restatement and like what kind of accounting errors those restatement are, and like I would find the percentage of each kind in the sample space. Then I will like point out which financial indicator is related to the error. That like the very initial idea of me to like for the method. However, I come to some difficulties when I start study like looking for the data. Firstly, there are not many public resources about the restatements, I would say. Although there are many studies, I don't know where did they find the data, but I jump into a problem to find the data about restatement, and I think it is because I am lack of experience, and I believe that I can get help from you or maybe some tutors. And the second is that I think I need more variables to make my research more reliable. Like I need more market characteristic to answer my questions. And the third difficult is I want to ask you if I should focus on a small market. Because as you said in your article that there are many dimensions that rule the result, and the natures of each market are very different. That's what I really wonder. But like the problem is for such a small market, I don't think that I will get enough input data for the sample space. And those are some references I used. Thanks for listening to me. That's
Okay, thank you so much, Nee, for this presentation. Very professional. Normally, many people would choose this kind of topic for the PhD thesis, but you are a brave girl, I know, and I'm not surprised. And this is a marvelous topic, and it has such a great potential. I mean, see what I tell you something. If you want to take this topic and research on it, then it has to be a great thesis. I mean, there's no compromising. You can't. The only option you have is that if you take this topic, then the thesis must be really, really, really great. I mean, you can't have this topic and make a mediocre or a kind of average quality thesis. So that is something which you have to bear in mind. Okay, I like your choice of the model, the hypothesis. Of course, we can polish them. And you are focusing on the accounting errors, okay? I think, if I'm not wrong, then the number of restatement, because in the company's annual reports, if you go to the financial reporting section, there's always some information about the restatements, how many times the company has been told to make a restatement. So that can be used as a proxy to the accounting errors. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, that's a very new information that I just know when you say it.
Yeah. So in the restatements, you can get the accounting errors data also. Plus, I can ask some more people who are, for example, I can ask my former PhD supervisor that what could be even more specific way to get the data. We would change some of these hypotheses, but of course we will do it, no problem. There's no need to discuss now. Could you go to your last slide when you have wrote down some difficulties? There are not many public resources. No, we will find them, no problem. That's the first objective. First difficulty is not a difficulty now. The reliability of the research, more variables. Yes, we will take some more variables for sure, because when you make this kind of regression model, then you must take some for example, you will, because since you are relating this topic with the accounting errors, then we can consider the quality of, so we can say that the accounting errors are depending on the nature and the composition of the audit committee this way. So for example, if you can see the audit committee and see what type of people the audit committee is comprising of, plus you can also say that accounting errors depend upon the kind of business. I mean, if a company is having more of intangible, they are easier to manipulate. Like for example, if I say, this is the pen, what is the price? You can find the price. But if I share an idea with you and I say, Nee, find the value of this idea. This idea's value could be 0 or could be 10 million. You never know.
Mm-hmm.
So in case of, maybe it's possible that in the intangible assets based companies,
Yeah.
the accounting errors are more than the old-fashioned companies. You see, in the old-fashioned company, you can find out, okay, these many buildings, these many cars, these many machines, multiply by the price, and that's the value of the company.
Mm-hmm.
But for
that's really interesting, though.
Yeah, but for the biotech, for the intangible companies, where the assets are, they have only one building, small building, a few people, but they all these machinery, not even machinery, all this software, all these gadgets, the ideas, the information. So those which are information based or the intellectual capital based companies, perhaps the errors are more there.
Oh.
And then one more thing, even though oil and gas is very fashion companies, they spend a lot of money on R&D, research and development. And there is a lot of potential to manipulate the data of R&D expenses because R&D has no evidence. R&D is not like that you enter a fixed quantity of input and on the other side of the machine you get the output. It doesn't go like this. R&D, you can spend millions and millions and millions and do nothing. So sometimes the companies, they want to hide their some kind of things in the name of R&D. So it depends upon what company, what type of business you are in, or what type of activities you're doing, and what is the nature and the composition of the audit committee. So there are many factors which can influence the accounting errors. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Considering the data, it's up to you. It's not a bad idea to actually take the Nordic countries, 5 countries, basically 4 countries, because there are not many companies in Iceland. You take the full sample of Nordic countries, but you also take sub-samples of Finland, Sweden, Norway, Denmark, and also make some comparison between these 4 countries where this phenomenon of error is more prominent. Or just take one, the full Finnish economy, like the Finnish corporate sector, basically. That is also possible. But we can come back to it later.
Yeah. Of course, it's a really big question that I still need to think of it a lot. So maybe.
Yeah. So I think the first difficulty is not a difficulty, but the second and third, I answered you in the one big long reply.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Thank you a lot.
Good luck to you. And it's a very, this topic is very close to my heart actually, because this is not very much, we need more research in the Nordic countries about this topic. We don't have yet so much of research about it. But thank you so much. And could I invite the next participant to come forward? Elena is here. Hi, Elena.
Hi.
So what is that? Collaboration of stakeholders and shareholders. Influence in comprehensive view on the functioning of corporate governance environment in USA. Wow, sounds promising.
I hope that's right work that I tried to do. My research was based on the article that I studied. And the collaboration of them give me such kind of theme. So here we can notice the main elements of the work that I will be announcing in the presentation. In introduction, I can say that work is based on the study of the main aspects of the corporate structure and factors affecting its stability. Due to the fact that today corporate governance is a multi-level mechanism consisting of laws, regulations, policies, public institutions, professional associations, and a code of ethics. Good corporate governance prevents managers from expropriating company resources, ensuring better decision-making and effective management. This leads to a better allocation of the company resources and ultimately to increasing productivity. The motivation of for my work was desire to understand the features of corporate governance, formation, and related factors. But also, when I go through some business press, my motivation was based on governance failures in the USA, like Enron, WorldCom, Tyco, and the others, and also was motivated by such thing like shareholder maximization that causes bad impact on the company. Goals and questions. The aim of the study was to explore the relationship between structural elements of corporate governance and representation of the total information collected on corporate governance in the USA as a result of the adoption of the Sarbanes-Oxley Act and the factors testifying effectiveness of the system governance in the United States. And so that is why I get some kind of questions. Corporate governance, John presented from internal control system and procedures that are used to manage individual companies. That I get from literature review. And also I tried to research that shareholders give a corporation to sell key assets, lay off loyal employees, and ruthlessly increase to remaining workforce, reduce product support, and causes a lot of bankruptcy. So that I can say that they have a bad effect on the corporate governance too. Also, in my research was one main thing that corporate governance and board role have a big influence in whole structure and conceptualizing the relationship between firm performance and organizational structures. The whole series have a big impact on it. Also, I can say that when studying corporate governance, it's a lot of issues between some conversations like monitoring and bonding, because these two principal governance devices that founded in agencies theory, monitoring and compensation, have created a cycle in which managers are paid excessively, requiring that corporate governance became more stringent, and corporate governance becomes, and it gives managers paid even more. And the second thing that causes basic corporation in corporate governance is shareholders and stakeholders. And the third one is independence and representation. Which basically depends on promoting shareholder maximization or highlighting a manager's requirements. Methodology. Exactly, the work philosophy was have a pragmatic point of view, and also research for information is fueled by descriptive and predictive analytical methods. The reason of why I choose a pragmatic approach because it's best suited to research problem and not getting caught in philosophical debates about which is best approach. Secondary research also was used when I was studied this topic to the systematic investigation, which depends on slowly existing data. And in the conclusion, I was trying to answer for my questions. So, and bibliography, such kind of books and articles that I was.
Okay. Very interesting, Elena. Elena, could I see your key objectives that you want to explore?
Yes.
The aim of the study is to explore the relationship between. Could you put in the slide mode or zoom, maximize this your slide?
Yes. Yes.
If you, yeah, good. That's better. Okay, the aim of this study is to explore the relationship between the all-embracing structural element of corporate governance. Okay. When you say all-embracing elements of corporate governance, then it can be including the board of directors. It includes the market. It includes it also includes the internal control system. It also includes the external audit. So maybe you have to specify that which aspect you want to account for.
I was trying to focus usually in internal part of the corporate governance, especially because in US corporate governance was a lot of different developments during the centuries, and I want to highlight it internal part.
Internal governance, very good. So in that case, you are referring to the board of directors and the internal control system, which makes it more sharp. Okay. So the first thing you keep in mind that when you will be analyzing the data, you'll be getting the information about the board of directors and the internal control system. Very good. So one thing is settled. Why does the corporate governance matter? Well, of course it matters. Even if it doesn't, even if a company thinks it doesn't matter, it's a legal requirement that you must have those governance mechanism intact.
Definitely.
Yeah. So, why would someone accept the theory of stakeholder instead of all? Okay, maybe you should have a research question like this: that why the modern day companies should not just focus on the shareholders, but see the larger stakeholder view. Because of course, shareholders are also very important stakeholders, but we also think about the non-shareholder stakeholders like employees and these kind of things. And once again, it could be a bit complicated to include all the stakeholders in one thesis because there are so many stakeholders. So maybe you need to specify which other stakeholder or stakeholders you want to bring in the discussion.
Okay.
Yeah. For example, there is one thesis recently done by Christina Boren, and she talks about the human resources in her thesis. Even though this thesis is from the financial side, but she talks about it, how the company's HR policies and all other things are getting affected by the. So maybe you can have either the labor as a stakeholder or something else. Let me show you something if I'm not wrong. I would be sharing the screen with you, but just a sec. Christina. Yeah. Not exactly this way, but this thesis can be a little bit of some use to you, because it says that how the compensation. Now, compensation is basically an HR issue. You with me?
And yes, and also should I the comparison of compensation and monitoring?
Well, you can relate it that how over the time companies the stock market performance has improved, accounting indicators have improved. I would say that if you include the company's, for example, compensation, which reflects the labor, basically. I mean, not just compensation of CEO, but the overall compensation of the whole company. You know, for the whole employees, that could be a labor aspect. And then there's one more thesis by Ilya Nekrasov, and we got the best paper award last year for this. We were in Croatia and we won it. He talks about the company's research and development, basically R&D thing. So the impact of board of directors characters on firm performance through innovation in the Finnish and Swedish. So I think from here, because when you are spending on R&D, you are thinking about the company's future growth. It means you are thinking about the company's employees, company's longer life. If company becomes bankrupt, many people would lose jobs. So that is more from the long-term stakeholders' point.
In this case, I should also mention some gaps.
What?
Gaps. The issues between corporation and managers, or while in the growth.
Yeah, I think that point you can bring in. So perhaps these two theses by Ilya and by Christina can give you a good foundation. But otherwise, I like your topic a lot. This is very interesting. The only thing is that we need to we can't research everything in one thesis, so we really have to make it a little bit more narrow. But I understand that it's a first draft, And once we have the more meetings in the future, maybe we should have one meeting before the Christmas break, a Zoom meeting or something, and so that we can discuss more concisely about your topic. But your topic has a lot of potential, and I like it a lot.
And also, should I focus in USA market, or should I make a comparison between USA market and Europe, probably?
Why you want to make the US economy? Sorry, good that you raised this point. I almost forgot. Is there any specific reason that you want to explore the US market?
No. Because you said that we can't make a really comprehensive research. We should focus somewhere, and I should probably to focus in some country.
No. I think there might be some misunderstanding. When I say comprehensive, I don't know in what comprehensive. For example, your presentation is very comprehensive, but I'm telling you that we need to be more focused. But comprehensive, if you mean the comprehensiveness by the amount of data or something?
Yes.
Well, the amount of data for a good thesis, if you want to do a really good thesis, we can even get a lot of data from only Finnish companies. No problem. We don't have to go to USA. Or we can make some intra-Nordic comparisons. So we can take, for example, like Ilya have done. He compared Finnish market and the Swedish market about the innovativeness, that how much they spend money on innovation. So we can take 2 Nordic countries and we can make a comparison, 2 or 3. I mean, because if you have 3 countries, then there'll be 3 comparisons, like Finland with Sweden, Sweden with Norway, Norway with Finland, or likewise. Or even 2 are enough. Or even alone Sweden, alone Finland is okay. Even that is fine. That's not a problem.
Now it's clear. Thank you.
Yeah, I was more concerned that maybe you want to study American market. Then it's a different thing.
No, I think it's no problem. I will focus on comparison between Nordic countries.
Good. That makes sense, I think. Yeah. But as I said, let's meet again and discuss more about it. Okay. But it's a very interesting topic, I must repeat.
Thank you.
Okay. Sorry, in the whole discussion, I couldn't ask the audience to raise the points. But if you have any question to Elina, or if you want to give a suggestion to her, you can please come forward and say. But I appreciate that. Santu, how are you doing?
I'm doing well.
You're doing
Okay.
Good.
Yeah.
Did you enjoy the presentations?
Yeah.
Very interesting topics and very diverse, from very finance oriented to very stakeholder oriented, right? Big range.
Yeah, that's the point. I have no questions to ask for
Okay,
these
great.
topics. These are not my, my thing in a way. So
okay. So,
yeah.
So thank you so much to Elina, Nee, Santu, and all the people who attended and who took part in the discussion. I'm recording it, but I will be sending the link to you of this recording, and then you can rewind it and see if any comment you didn't get when I was making it. So or when you watch the recording, if you have more questions for me, you can bring it. So I would be sharing the recording with you soon once I receive it. But I enjoyed your topics. You guys are marvelous as always. And let's go for the kill. And I'll see you soon. And until then, bye-bye.
Bye.